Welcome to the Unleashed Advanced Training video. Let's have a look at what we will be covering. Today, we are going to be covering manufacturing. So in our production module, we are going to be able to create a bill of materials, which is a recipe for creating a finished product. We will also be setting up assemblies and all those products that go into the manufacturing. Now that we know all the concepts of Unleashed and how it works, we can take a step back and talk about how to set up your account. So we will look at importing data and the system configuration. Of course, Unleashed can work on its own as a standalone system or as part of a business solution. So we will then look at the integrations which are available to you. So first, production. What this is basically allowing you to do is to purchase in raw components to make up a finished product. So we need to set up our products in the correct way to say that this is a component, this is a finished product, and so forth. We will show you and walk you through the different types of products. Once we have decided what our components are and what we are trying to make, we can then create our bill of materials. So this is like our recipe for how to create our finished product. Once we have our recipe, we can then assemble our products. So we can do this as and when we need an assembly, or we can do this as an auto assembly. That way, when you sell it, and you don't have any finished products, we can grab all the components at the time of the sale and compile it then. We will also walk you through how product allocations work during the assembly process and when the stock on hand changes will occur. So the first thing we need to look at is our products. So let's go to Inventory, Products, and View Products. You can create a product as and when you need them, and you can also import your products into Unleashed. So today we will be making our dry stout, and we have a variety of ingredients that will go into making it. So let's find our hops, which is a component of our dry stout. So we can see that the component product has been selected here, and this means that it is a product we can use to build a finished product. If this is not ticked, it will not be listed when we are creating our bill of materials. Let's then look at our malt extract, which is also a component product. So again, you'll see that the checkbox has been selected. Let's now go look at our finished product, which is the dry stout. It is made up of a number of individual components, like the grains, hops, and malt. So it is an assembled product type, which you can see has been selected here. It is possible to have a product that is both a component as well as an assembled product, and this means that we can have layers of assemblies. Now that we have our product set up, we need to go into our production area and set up our recipe, which is our bill of materials. We can add these bill of materials as we require them for our assembled type products. If you would like to create a new bill of materials, you can select Add Bill, name it, and then enter the component products required to make that product. Let's look at the bill of materials that I previously set up for our dry stout. So you can find the product and then add in the quantity you need to make up the dry stout. You can also then add in wastage, which is an estimate of margin of error, and this can be changed during the manufacturing process. So that will account for any wastage or loss during the assembly process. We can also have the can auto-assemble checked, but this is more applicable for products that you can just grab off the shelf and assemble it into your finished item on the fly. There is no manufacturing required. So we can see the recipe of what is going into the dry stout, and we can also see how much it will cost us if we make it today. So Unleashed knows the true cost of these components, so we know the true cost of the dry stout. When we sell it, we will use this to calculate the margin and profit. Now that we have our recipe, we can go in and add our assembly. So we can go to Production, Assemblies, and Add Assembly. Adding an assembly is a manual process that we are going to build a product on. So we can select the warehouse that we are going to be building it on. as well as the product that we want to make today. So let's put in our dry stout here. When it loads up, we can see here that we can assemble 11 dry stouts. This is based on our current component stock on hand levels. So today I just want to assemble one dry stout, so you can put that into the assembled quantity field. Unleashed will then tell you what quantities of the component products you need to pull off the shelf. At the moment, this is a parked assembly because we are still busy building it. Because we are currently building it and it's not yet on hand, we are not increasing the stock on hand of our dry stout. We have also not yet reduced the stock on hand for our components either. A really great place to have a look at all the changes to our products is the reorder report. So let's select the warehouse that we will be making our dry stout from and run the report. Let's go look at one of our components, the hops. The two columns that we are going to focus on today is in assembly, which is for the components, and on assembly, which is for the assembled products. So here we can see that we have 3.5 hops that are in assembly, so we are going to use these hops in the assembly of the dry stout. Do note that this is a blue font, so if you hover over it, it becomes a link. If you click on that link, it will take you to the product allocations report. This report will show me a list of the assemblies that are using the hops. Let's go back into the reorder report. So we can also see that there is the on assembly column. So here we can see that there is currently one dry stout running through our manufacturing process. Again, this is a link so I can drill down and see more information. Now, because we have reserved the hops and the other raw components that are going into the dry stout, they are not available to sell. So we take our stock on hand and subtract anything that is on assembly, as well as any other allocations such as sales orders, to give you the available quantity. So our dry stouts haven't been built yet, so they are not available for sale, and they will definitely not show up as stock on hand. Let's go back into our assembly. Once we have physically made the components, we can then complete the assembly process. By doing this, we will get some documentation which will show us exactly what has been taken out. Please note that during the assembly process, you can change the assembled quantities and wastage, and you can add products into the assembly and take them away. Please also note the following regarding batch numbers. If the component is a batch, then the assembled product must also be a batch tracked item. You are not able to auto-assemble batch or serial tracked products. We can also add any costs associated with the building of that product under the Supplier Costs tab. So for example, if you have any external labor costs, freight costs, or anything in building that particular dry stout, we can add that so that we can give you the true cost of building that product. Now, the assembly process doesn't actually increase or decrease the value of the stock in your business. We are just transferring it from raw components to finished products. So the assembly itself doesn't send anything across to your accounting software. However, if you have costs associated with it, like those external labor costs, then this is actually a bill we need to pay, so we do send a payable across to your accounting software package. Let's go back into our reorder report and see our stock on hand changes. So you can see that the in-assembly amount for my hops has gone down. You will then see that the in-assembly amount for all my raw components has also gone down. Those raw components are actually no longer raw components. They are actually a bottle of dry stout. So the stock on hand will reduce at this point in time. Our dry stout on assembly will decrease, but the on hand will increase as we have finished making that product. So this is the process of building your recipe and building your product, and it is really important to note the movement of your stock. If you have products that do not need physical assembly, then you can sell them using auto assembly, and Unleashed will create the assembly behind the scenes for you. Let's create a new sales order. If I enter my Awesome Beer box of 12 item here, you can see that the availability is 15. Now, we may not actually have 15 on hand, we may actually have 0, but we have enough components to make up the 15. So we will show you the availability of 15 because we can physically make them. Now, this will only work if it is an auto-assembled item. So we can pop in 15 as the quantity to sell and then add that in. If we didn't have any on hand, but we could build them, we will get the little orange exclamation mark next to the quantity field, which tell me that an assembly has been created behind the scenes. And this is for the awesome beer boxes that we did not actually have on hand. So in our case, we ordered 15, but we clearly did not have any on hand. So we are assembling 15 to be able to fulfill this order. If we then complete the sales order, the assembly will automatically be completed. Please note that the auto assembly is not something you can change, so be very mindful of that. It is only really for products that you can just grab off the shelf and assemble for the customer, such as a dining table and chairs or gift baskets. Also, please note that if you have a customizable product, like a white wine for some of your packs and red wine for others, then the auto assembly is probably not the best idea, as you cannot change it because it all works behind the scenes. Also note that you cannot delete the auto assembly once it has been created. You are also able to print documentation for the assembly, where you will be able to view the components, quantities, wastage, and costs. Let's have a look at disassembly in Unleashed. Using disassembly allows you to quickly and easily reduce a bulk purchase to its component parts. The disassembly can be manual or automatic, and this can be set up on the bill of materials, which is where we were able to set up the auto assembly too. The advantage of the auto disassembly is that you can purchase product in bulk and then break them into their component parts ready for resale as soon as they are receipted back into stock. So let's view our bill of materials for our awesome beer box of 12. We can then select the auto disassembly option. Now, if we are purchasing that product and we receipt it in, we will then get a notification to indicate that the product will be disassembled. We can then go ahead and receipt it, and we then see that we have the green tick. And if we click through, it will show us the individual products that are ready to sell on that disassembly. You might also use disassembly when a unit conversion is required. This may be the case when purchasing items from overseas. So for example, you could be purchasing in kilograms, but you want to receive it in pounds. Now, when you are making a customer return on a manufactured product, and you need to have it returned back into inventory by its component parts, you can also use disassembly. So let's create a credit and select the relevant invoice number. You can then select that it is to be returned and disassembled. As we complete this, we can see that familiar green checkbox indicating that an auto disassembly has been actioned. You can then view the disassembly and see that we have brought those component products back into stock. Let's have a look at the summary for production. So our component product is our raw material that is going into our finished product. We then said that the assembled product is the finished product that we are going to build. You can also have a product that is a component and an assembled product, and this allows you to do layers of assemblies. We can have auto assemblies, and that means that if you sell more than you actually have on hand, it will show you that, and you can build more based on your current stock on hand levels for the components. Now, it is quite common for our customers to buy in bulk and then sell things in smaller quantities. So you can have very small quantities in your bill of materials. A reminder that a parked assembly will just allocate the components, but the completed assembly will reduce the stock on hand for the components, and it will increase the stock on hand for the finished product. Now that you understand how Unleashed works, we can take a step back and talk about how to set up your Unleashed account. The first thing we are going to cover is underneath Settings, Organization, and Company. The company settings is mostly pulled through from when you first set up your account. So that's the company name, trading name, and industry. If these are not correct, you can go ahead and change these fields. You also have your organization type and your base currency. This base currency would have been set up when you first signed up and had your demo of Unleashed, so please ensure that this is correct. Remember also that if your financials are in New Zealand dollars, then your base currency should probably be in New Zealand dollars too, even if you buy and sell in other currencies, and this can still be set up. But once that base currency is set up and transactions start occurring, it is very difficult to change that base currency. So be sure to double check this during your setup. Towards the bottom, we have a list of features that you can turn on and off. Some of these options are not available on all subscriptions, so do check out our pricing page on the Unleashed website or touch base with us if you are not 100% sure. Coming across, you have a field where you can pop in your GST or VAT number. If you are in Australia, you can pop in your ABN number here. You then have your website and your time zone for stamping in the time of transactions. A lot of this information is self-explanatory if you look at the tabs. We have the address details, contact details, your logo, invoicing details, and purchasing details. The one that I specifically want to look at here is the contact details. The email address that you add for the purchase email and sales email fields will be the email that it looks like your purchase orders and sales orders are coming from, instead of it being a systems address, which could be blocked by spam filters. So the email will look as if it's coming from you and not from us. You can also pop in a default email message. So once you are done with your company settings, you can move down to your system settings. There are loads of system settings and they are really easy to configure. The first one is adjustment reasons. So remember when we created a stock adjustment and we needed to monitor why we are increasing or decreasing the stock quantity or value. So we can pop those reasons in here to ensure that it suits our business requirements. So for example, we may take stock for demos or marketing purposes. So this is really useful for reporting purposes. You can also define your credit reasons. So this is basically why the customers are returning goods to us. Next, we have currency rates. So we can define which currencies we are trading in. So you can see all the currencies and exchange rates on this page. So you can select a currency and pop in a buy and sell rate. Those buy and sell rates will be used when you are purchasing or selling in that currency. Remember that you can change those exchange rates as you are going through those transactions. Next is your customer types. We pop in the customer types in the system settings, and then against each customer's record, we will also pop in their type. Again, these can be used as you see fit, and they are great for reporting as well, as they will show up on your dashboard as sales by these customer groups. So you can divide these by regions or by type, such as retail or wholesale, whatever you want to monitor against customers. Next is delivery methods. So what type of methods do we offer to deliver goods? Be aware that these are not the companies we are using. We'll set those up elsewhere. These are just the methods. Next is prefixes. Now, you need to get onto these prefixes very early on in your Unleashed setup. As we know, each transaction in Unleashed has a prefix and a number, so this is where you can define those. As soon as you create a transaction, these prefixes are locked down. You can also define the next number. So if you are moving from an old system to Unleashed, you wouldn't want to start at 1, so you can just continue the sequence and avoid confusion. Next is product groups. Again, you can use these as you see fit, but it is basically there to monitor products by product group. These product groups can be for sales, as well as purchases by product groups, and as well as stock takes. Next is payment terms. Unleashed will give you a few payment terms to start off with, but if you need a custom payment term, you can then add it at the top. So you can enter a name, the applicable days, and then select the type from the options list. Once you have saved it, you can use it against your customer or supplier records. We give you this option so that you know the due date for when you need to pay your suppliers, and by when your customers need to pay you. Next is sales groups. This can be used for whatever you like. For example, you may want to know which state or region the sale is for. You can also maybe use it to group sales by branches. Next is salespersons. This allows you to monitor sales by salesperson, which is great for reporting. This could also be handy with regards to calculating commission. You are also able to assign a salesperson to your customers. Next is sell price tiers. As we have mentioned, there are up to 10 selling price tiers to play around with, so you can name them so that you can easily identify them. Next is shipping companies. This is a list of companies that the warehouse team can choose from to get the goods out the door. By having a pre-populated list, we avoid having a free text field which could be missed. Next is supplier return reasons. So similar to our credit reasons, this would be a list of reasons why we would be returning goods to our suppliers. Again, this is great for reporting purposes and for picking up specific issues. Next is taxes. If you are using an accounting software provider such as Xero, it is important to get these rates from there so that we pull through a list of acceptable tax rates in your account, so we can tell Unleashed if it's a sales type tax or purchase tax. If you don't have an accounting software package, you can then create your taxes here. Next is units of measure. So this is simply listing how we measure products. So it could be in kilograms, liters, cartons, etc. This is by no means converting anything, it is just a measurement. Next is warehouses. So if you have multiple warehouses, we can pop them in here. Depending on your subscription level, that will define how many warehouses you are able to add. You can use these in the traditional sense of a warehouse, or you could be using them for a third-party warehouse or retail stores, or it could be vans in your company. Whatever location where you want to monitor how much product is in that location. Coming down, you then have your document designer. When we were looking at transactions in Unleashed, you would have seen that Unleashed produces documentation in PDF format. You can have documentation for things such as invoices, sales orders, purchases, returns, and you can design these. Unleashed comes with a few default templates, so you don't have to start from scratch, but you could also create your own as needed. We recommend that you duplicate an existing template so that you have a baseline to work with. So let me find my training template and duplicate it and give it a name so we can do some examples. The key thing here is your toolbox. This is basically a list of placeholders that you can drag and drop onto your document design, and there are loads of placeholders pulling information such as supplier information, contact information, etc. If you need a component on your documentation, you simply drag and drop it across and position it in the right place. So let's do this for warehouse name. Now, a question is often asked as to why there are two warehouse names. Well, the first one is the actual label, and the second one is the actual placeholder. You can remove the placeholder or remove the label if you need to. Each of these components can be designed. So if you go to the Component tab, you can specify what you would like it to look like. So for something like the purchase order lines grid, we will show all the products you are purchasing. And you can put on line numbers and product codes. There are loads of options, so you can decide what will display in that grid. There are also fonts and colors that you can specify. As you go through and make these changes, Unleashed will save it for you. You can then go and preview your changes along the way. Once you're happy with the preview, you can then publish it and push it into production use. So that is your document design. Let's then look at security next, and we'll start with role permissions. We would recommend that you set up your role permissions fairly late in your Unleashed setup. This way, you can ensure that your staff is well trained and understand the system before they get access. All your users are going to be added to a role. If you have someone in the business who has a very specific role, then you can add that role and name it accordingly, as I've done with my Danielle's role example. Coming down, you will see a list of areas on the application that the user either can or cannot see. So if they don't need to look at the product page, for example, we can turn that off. If they do need to look at the stock adjustments, then we can turn that on. So you can basically go down the list page by page until we get down to the sales area. Once we hit the sales area, we have a little bit more control. For example, for the sales order, if you do not want someone to see the margin and profit, you can switch it off. For unit price, we have a can edit checkbox, so you may want to allow some people to edit the unit price. Otherwise, you may want to pull that from the product record and no edits would be allowed. The sales order and sales quote are the only ones that have this type of control. Otherwise, if they can see it, they can change it. So once you have your role set up, you can then set up your users. So let's go into users, and you can see that there are a couple of areas of users. You can see here that I have 5 users and I have 1 account owner. I can also see that there is a person we have invited, but they haven't yet accepted the invitation. Of course, if they haven't received that invitation, we can resend it from here. If you do have an implementation partner, which is quite a common scenario, you can invite them into your account. You can then easily invite users by using the button on the top right-hand side of the page, then add in their details, and then select the relevant role. So you can see that it is advisable to first create the roles before you assign the users. You can then pop in a message, and there's also a default one, and then you can click on invite. You'll be able to see if the invite has been sent, as it will be in the user invitation section. Once they accept, they will move up to the top section. Once they have accepted, the approved checkbox will also be ticked. This is not something that you can manually change, although you can change their full name and their role. Looking at the email address, this is also something that cannot be updated, as this is the email address they would use to log into Unleashed. Now, if you do have access to multiple accounts, you can select your name on the top of the page and then go into My Account, where you can see the accounts that you have access to. Underneath here, you can also access the Unleashed University, change your password, and log out. The Unleashed Notification Center is used to send you the latest release information, as well as other supporting and marketing information. If there is a new message, you will see a number to indicate this. We then also have our help functionality, as well as our global search, where you can find transactions in your account. Once you have finished with all your settings, the next step is to bring in all of your data. There are a number of things that you would want to import, and one of those is the customers import. You can import customers, suppliers, and products. You can also import your bill of materials. The process of importing is the same for all of these items. So let's do an example of customers. So we can go to Customers and Import Customers. The first step is to download the template. Now the template will be different for each type of information that you are trying to import, because we basically need a different set of information for each. So this will download a spreadsheet where you can then enter your information. You need at least your customer code and customer name, but you can populate this with as much information as you can. Of course, if you have the information in another place, you can just copy and paste it across. So for this example, let me enter 2 of my customers. So I've got code 123 for customer blue, and then code 456 for customer green. So if you perhaps have a duplicate, like our example of 123 blue, Unleashed will import the first one and it will skip the second entry. If customer blue already exists in Unleashed and we try to import it again, it is going to update that record. So this is perfect if you're wanting to do bulk updates, but you also need to be really careful with this. To prevent any mishaps, it is highly recommended that you first export your customer information and keep that as a backup. If you only want to change one column of the data and not impact anything else, then you have to keep the entire set of data there. So let's do an example. So I've exported this information, but let's say that I only want to change one thing on the top row. So I'm going to delete all the other information, and then I'm going to change the sell price tier from retail to wholesale. Now, one may be inclined to delete all the other information that you are not changing, but be aware that this would mean that that information would be wiped out. So if you don't want to remove things that you are not updating, then you just need to leave those fields as is. So I'll add mine back. The data that we require on each of these imports is quite specific, so remember to check out the templates with the definitions. Once you are happy with the information you have added, you can then upload it. So again, you are going to be uploading your customer records, your supplier records, and your products. If you have your bill of materials, you can also import these. Now, there are features in Unleashed that will help you import transactions, such as purchase orders and sales orders. You would only do that if you have open transactions that you want to bring in. So if we have open purchase orders that should be coming in soon, then we can import them into Unleashed so that when they are received, we can receipt them through Unleashed. Similarly with sales, if you have open sales, the stock on hand is reflecting the sales that have not yet gone out. So you would put them into Unleashed so that you can complete them in Unleashed. We would not want to import historical information. You would rather keep that in your old system. Unleashed is a real-time system, so there is no way for us to indicate what is historical and what we should disregard. The last piece of the puzzle is to import your stock on hand, and this is one of the most important things in Unleashed. We need to know what stock on hand we have and where it is located. So we can download our template and check it out. So what we are doing here is saying what products we have and where they are located. You will also put in the stock on hand and the average landed cost. I could have the same product in 2 different warehouses. So if I put in that I have an average landed cost of $5.95 and then enter it as $22.95 in the next line, we will ignore the second average landed cost and take the $5.95. So if we have made a mistake and we enter product 123 in Auckland again with a different stock on hand level and average landed cost, we will ignore the second entry. If you made a mistake, you would then have to do a stock adjustment. It is really important that we start off Unleashed with accurate stock levels, so we recommend that you run a warehouse stock take to ensure that the stock on hand and average landed cost is correct. You don't have to do this all in one large spreadsheet though. You could, for example, do Auckland first and then have a separate spreadsheet to do Sydney. So you can take your time with this and make sure it is accurate. Remember that once you import stock on hand, you cannot import it again. You would then be able to do a stock adjustment or a stock take to rectify it. So that's basically it for the setup. Now that you know how Unleashed works, we can talk about integrations. So, as we have mentioned a few times during these training videos, Unleashed can integrate with your accounting software. We currently have 2 integrations, one with Xero and the other one with QuickBooks Online. We also have a point of sale integration with Vend and Shopify. So we will pass the point of sale system a list of products you have and how much stock on hand you have. So this will assist with product inquiries in Unleashed or your point of sale system. Any sales conducted in your point of sale system will then be passed to Unleashed. We also have Shopify and Magento e-commerce integrations. It hooks into your website so that you can conduct your shopping cart. Again, it works fairly similarly to the point of sale systems like Vend, where we pass across products and the stock on hand for each of those products. In that way, on your website, your customers can see what is available for you to sell. Also, at the time of receipt, it updates very quickly into Shopify or Magento, so you will never miss out on those sales. Also, any sales conducted inside Shopify or Magento gets passed to Unleashed. Unleashed also has a connection to a customer relationship management software called Salesforce, and this means that you can keep all your customer information in one place. There are also plenty more integrations that our platform partners have built with us. We don't own these integrations, so they are built by our platform partners and listed on our website. If we do not have an integration that you need, you can build it yourself using the Unleashed API. For more information, visit our integrations page on the Unleashed website. Thank you for watching the Unleashed Advanced Training video.